Hi, this is Mrs. Slater, and I want to go over the chapter review sheet. So if you could start the first one by completing the square, and you're going to divide everything by 9. So that's going to leave you with x squared plus x minus 10 over 9. The constant we are going to add to both sides, so that's going to give us a 10/9. And then we're going to complete the square, which a leading coefficient of 1 is going to be divided by 2, and that's just going to be squared, which makes us with a 1/4 on both sides. Okay, now that is going to factor nicely. It's always right before you square it is going to be the factors of 1/4. That'll give you 1 for the middle. And then if you combine like terms, and this one looks like 36 would be the highest or the lowest denominator we could have there, so that's going to be 40, and this would be 9. So we end up with 49 over 36, and when you take the square root of both sides, you end up with x plus 1/2 equals, and I forgot the plus or minus, so I'm going to sneak that in there, plus or minus 7 over 6, because they're both perfect squares. Now one more step to add here is to actually subtract is the 1/2 to both sides. That way x is isolated. And there are two different problems here. Negative 1/2 plus 7 over 6 and negative 1/2 minus 7 over 6. So when you combine like terms and multiply that by 3, you end up with 4/6, which reduces to 2/3. And a common denominator of 6 on this one is going to give you a negative 10/6, which reduces to a negative 5/3. So those are your two values of x for this problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and go on to number 2. And this one you're supposed to solve. You have 4x times x minus 2 minus 5x and then x minus 1. So go ahead and distribute, and you get this. So make sure you're distributing that negative on the second one, and then combining like terms, you get negative x squared minus 8x. Oop, that should be a 5x right there. So then this would end up being a negative 3x equals 2, and then I'm going to move everything to the right just so I can have a positive x squared, and then factor. So x minus, or x plus 2 and x plus 1 is going to give me the factors I need, and so therefore x is going to equal negative 2 and negative 1. Number 3. You have a rectangular garden plot, and in this garden there is an area of 200 square yards and a perimeter of 60, and we have to define the dimensions. So on this particular, we have to know two formulas. Area equals length times width, and then perimeter equals 2L plus 2W. Okay, and then if the perimeter is 60, I'm going to go ahead and put that in this place. Divide everything by 2, you have L plus W equals 30. Okay, and on this equation, we have 200 equals L times W. And if we take one of these and solve for W, it's 30 minus L. So I'm going to take that and replace it right here. So I'd have 200 equals L times 30 minus L. And that's going to change into a quadratic. So 200 equals 30L minus L squared. And again, my squared term is negative, so I'm going to move everything to the opposite side. And then plus 200. And I will need to find factors of 200 that are going to give me 30. And you end up with a negative 20 and a negative 10. So that means the length could be 20 or it could be 10. And if you plug 20 and 10 back in to get the 200, since we know 200 equals L times W, we can replace L with 20 and solve to get 10. So we can put that the width, if the length is 20, then the width is going to be 10, and vice versa for the width and the length for the next one. Number 4 is a triangle, a right triangle, and it says that the hypotenuse is 25, and it also says the length of one leg is 17 less than the other. So this we'll call x on the left side, and the bottom we'll call x minus 17. So in a right triangle, we can use the Pythagorean theorem. So x squared plus x minus 17 squared equals 25 squared. So go ahead and push pause and multiply FOIL and combine like terms and set equal to 0. And the next two steps should look something like this. And then anytime you have a factor of 2, you can go ahead and divide that out to get x squared minus 17x, and then also a negative 60 or 168. 168 has factors that will give us 17, which are 24 and 7. The negative would go on the 24 and the positive would go on the 7, giving us lengths for x of 24 and negative 7. Okay, so you can't have a negative distance, so that means x has got to be the 24, and if I plug that in, it's going to be 7 for the bottom part of that triangle. Number 5, we have to solve by using the quadratic formula. On this one, it's important to list out the A, B, and C. A is going to be 3, B is going to be 1, and C is going to be 2. So then x equals opposite B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A is what all of the values would look like. Then negative 1 would be plus or minus something all over 6. And as you can see, we have 12. If you just look at this part right here, it's 1 minus 12 times 2, so that's 24, which ends up giving you a negative 23 inside of the radical. So do not stop there. Make sure you are simplifying as much as possible, which means take the I out when you see a negative square root. And that's going to be your final answer. Number 6 is a let u problem. X minus 3x to the 1/2 plus 2 equals 0. We are going to let u equal x to the 1/2. Now u squared is taking this and squaring it. And if you notice, when you square this, that's just going to become 1. So u squared is really just x, which will be helpful when we change this to a quadratic. So u squared minus 3u plus 2 equals 0. And now u minus 2 and u minus 1 would be the values for the factors, and then the solutions would be 2 and 1. Okay, now we bring back the x to the 1/2, because really we are solving for x. We're not solving for u here. And then once you see that's a fraction, we're going to just square both. Okay, and when you square both, that's just going to give you an x by itself. 2 squared, those are supposed to be 2's, but just don't look like it. It's 4, and then when you square 1, you get 1. Okay, number 7. The formula is a good idea to write down first. But I recall saying in class that I'm not going to do a velocity problem, so I'm just going to go ahead and go to 8, because you are going to see the interest rate problems. Okay, they tell you in part A that if the interest rate, you have $5,000 to begin with, that's going to go in for P. R is going to be left alone, and it says in 2 years we want it to grow to 5,671, 125. It seems like an odd number for money, but anyway, we're going to go with it. Go ahead and push pause and divide both sides by 5,000. So you may have already done this, but you should take the square root of both sides, and you end up with 1 plus r on the right side, and then on the left side you're going to end up with 1.065, and then by subtracting 1, and it's plus or minus, I forgot to put that in earlier, so plus or minus, that's going to give you a negative 2.065, which doesn't make any sense, or you're going to get 0.065 for the rate. Okay, so we want to change this percentage. So we're going to have to move the decimal place over 2 spaces. So you end up with 6.5%. Part B of 8, if the interest rate is 5.5%, I'm going to go ahead and write down the formula again so I know where to plug everything in. So they're telling you it's 5.5%, but before you can put it into the equation, you're going to need to put it into decimal form, which is 0.055. And then it says the principal rate is, or principal amount is 5,000. And again, we'll have 2 years, but we want to know how much we're going to have by the end of the 2 years. So this one is just a pure order of operations. And in order of operations, you are going to take the inside of parentheses and add them together, and go ahead and solve and see if we have matching answers. So hopefully you have something that looks like that. For number 9, you're going to solve for t when it's 2 times v sub o plus 10 times t squared. So you end up getting t by itself by first subtracting 2 v sub o to both sides. Then you're going to want to divide by 10 to both sides. That's again supposed to be a 2. And then by taking the square root of both, you'll end up with plus or minus square root of h minus 2v all over square root of 10. So now t is by itself, and we want to take the radical of 10 for both the top and the bottom. So you get plus or minus h minus 2v times 10 all over 10. And that's how you're going to solve for v. And finally, the last one is variation equations. It says on number 10 that P, the pressure of gas, varies jointly as the number of moles. So we have K jointly with N and the temperature. So we're going to put T there. And then and inversely as the volume. So that's where all of those are going to be. And I don't see anything that's square, so we're good with the what we have right there. Then it says 1 mole at 10,000 K is a volume of 10 liters. Okay, so you should fill everything in. The pressure was 8.23. There was only 1 mole. 1,000 K is the temperature, and 10 is the volume. So when you solve for K, you can multiply both sides by 10 over 1,000. And multiplying 10 over 1,000 ends up with 0.0823. Okay, so now we're going to use that in our equation of variation. P equals 0.0823 N T all over V. Okay, now let's make our predictions. What is the pressure of 1 mole? So that's the N at 500 K, which is the temperature. And let's go ahead and put that in as well. And a volume of 10. So we need to find the pressure. And if you multiply all those together, you end up with 4.115 atm. Okay, and then they ask for another prediction off to the side. And we're going to use the same equation of variation. So you have 0.0823 N times T all over V. And then when you plug in the pressure of 2 moles and the temperature at 300 all over the volume of 1 liter, then you can just multiply all those together at the top and get 49.38 as your pressure. And that is the conclusion of the review sheet. And if you are listening, there will not be a test tomorrow. We are going to test on Monday. We're going to have a review activity in class tomorrow. So I'm glad you listened to this video, and I will see you in class tomorrow.